I remember to record. Okay. All right. Well, so let's go ahead and get started. We'll let anybody else on. Is it? There it is. Okay. It seems like it's always, no matter how long the delay is, if I say, "Is it recording?" That is the second
It'll
it actually
pop on
tells
and
me
it'll
it's
tell you it
recording.
is.
Yeah, the second I say it. All right. So first of all, just as a housekeeping measure, Bree has resigned from the board, which means we are now down to five individuals, unfortunately. But because we did update our constitution and all that sort of stuff, we do currently have Chris, John, and Zach as board members. So we do have a quorum. We can perform. And then Devin as well. Thank you again. Welcome, welcome, welcome. But I just want to get that out of the way. A lot of people out this month, traveling, doing whatever. So we will just go ahead and get through this and hope that they watch the video. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, approval of the March minutes. You all should have received that last Thursday or Friday. Were there any issues on that one? Okay. Looking for a motion then on that? John raises his hand while chewing. Is there a second to approve the minutes?
Second.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. All right, let's go ahead and move on to my activities for the past month. Since I've been donating time, I've definitely felt a little safer giving more time over since I'm kind of giving the money back. I know it's not a one-to-one, but I have increased the amount, and I intend to continue to increase the amount of time that I have been devoting to UTRU. So first of all, over the past month, worked 24.5 hours during that time. On the media outreach side, I provided the analysis for the August change day and also attended the change day meeting. I don't know if you all saw that the blog post I put together, but basically for what it is, it's good, but there was a big long spiel about we need to be paying drivers more so that we can get drivers and blah, blah, blah. They did say during the meeting, and I was unaware of this, that they apparently have renegotiated the union contract. Wages are higher, it's going through and providing more benefits for drivers. So cautiously optimistic. I know the union, the writers union a few months ago basically said the union said that they were not happy at all and they were going to continue to stonewall. So they apparently reached an agreement not terribly long ago, and that was news to me, which is good. Good news to hear. So did that. Also, I did present to the Wasatch Transportation Academy regarding transit advocacy. I didn't get it on the thing in time, but I also spoke to a couple of undergrads. They're doing a project on transit advocacy as well. Spoke to them for like 30 minutes the other day. Let's see. Also, from the networking side, I gained access to the larger Facebook page, which I didn't even realize that we had, but it has something like 1,000 people on there. So I have started to actually advertise on that guy as well, and plan to start utilizing that. On the fundraising side of things, I completed and submitted the APTA grant. We talked about this last month. They already responded back saying, "Hey, can you send us some more information?" So I take that as a good sign. And they're working through that. So let's see. I'm also working on the donor list that we were talking about over the past month or so. I have this is pulling from Democratic donors in the state of Utah from 2024, or excuse me, 2022 and 2020. I've gotten through the org list. I'm just cleaning up addresses and those sorts of things. And so as far as contact and outreach, we should probably come up with a strategy for that. The individual donors are much higher as far as, or a larger number. So that's going to take a little bit more time to sift through, but I also think that that's an opportunity if there are people that we recognize on that list to start working on. Also created and advertised our stickers for the first time. So those are out in the world now, and we've gotten at least 2 new people signed up as far as donors are concerned. I haven't pushed very hard on it yet. I just wanted to get it out there. But if there are additional sticker ideas, I'm happy to put them into the world. But yeah, so we've got that going. As far as upcoming activities, my big 3 are continuing to work on Transit Imagined, continuing to focus on the fundraising list and working with you guys individually as far as who wants to talk to who about what. And then I also need to publish the free fare findings or the free fare poll that we did the other day, like a month ago at this point, and get that published and out in the world. Hopefully we can get some more activity out of that. And then also the Central Wasatch Commission grant. John sent that over a while ago. I didn't have time to focus on it. It's a rolling grant. They would have liked things done by this past Monday. So I will still try to get that out and into the world. As far as the numbers are concerned, we had 10 new Twitter followers. We're now up to 685. No new TikTok followers, still at 12. No new YouTubers at 7. We do have 5 new members sitting at 199 at this point. We have no new people on the mailing list, so it's still at 36. And then we have 2 new dues paying members, which it is now at 7. So those are my updates. Anything anybody want to add, ask questions about? Okay, easy peasy. So next item, I reached out to the people in charge of the chapters just to see if they were interested in hopping on. Clearly they are not at this point, so that's fine. For chapter updates, so for the university, or excuse me, the UTRU students, I believe I brought this up a couple months ago, but they've been actively working on a project to have bicycle supplies in vending machines. So inner tubes, pumps,
bicycles
for just a whole bicycle. You just push the button. But it's the idea being that those will be set up around like the University of Utah campus and be funded. They are still actively working on that. They've trying to get that pushed through the University of Utah. They're also waiting for it to warm up because it still hasn't been warm enough to go tabling. Hopefully by this time next month, they will have gotten a few out there up and running. Also, they're looking into how much the university gives to UTA for actually subsidizing bus passes, and it's not a huge amount. And so they're seeing if maybe there's a way for the university to possibly increase that. As far as the Sugar House South Salt Lake, they continue to try to build their numbers and their coalition. John, I know that you've spoken to Scott not terribly long ago about that. And he still remains optimistic, and I am too, but I do want to get them locked in. And so we might need to put a little bit of additional supports in place to see if we can at least get that chapter up and going. Because I know one of the things that you talked about, John, last time is let's come up with actual activities for these chapters to do.
Yeah.
We need to have stuff in place in the first place. So I'll continue talking to him about it. If we just need to charter it with one person, I'm not super thrilled about that. I'd like to make at least a couple people in leadership roles, but at the very least, it's not as if it's not as if he himself is not excited and ready to go. It's just I'd like to have that support around there. So,
yeah, and I met with him and a couple weeks ago, and we're gonna have another follow-up meeting. So I'll see what we can do.
Great.
And there's some people in the area too.
That would be great. So that's my update as far as the chapters. Any questions on those? Oh, okay. The next one was those ideas for tangible projects for chapters / UTRU. Like I said, John, in the last meeting, you really wanted to emphasize like, hey, let's give people actual things that they can be doing. And so with the, I was hoping we'd have a few more people on the call this time, but that being said, we can still start talking, start having a brainstorm. I've come up with a couple. I don't know if you guys have, but yeah, so let's kind of just open it up and start chatting. What are some ideas that people have?
Devin, Xander, got anything? I can jump in. So I can start. So the project we have going on at the U around van pools. I had a chance to go since our last meeting. I actually visited UTA headquarters, went to see the shop, saw the vans, learned a little bit more about the program, met with staff, and learned that there's over 400 van pools buzzing around the Wasatch Front. And there's various types of incentives for these van pools. It sounds like some of them are around air quality for the companies that use them. Some are around, employee benefits, things like that. And the project we have ongoing at the University of Utah is to look at pilot van pools to the U in partnership with the UTA, using the UTA van pools in order to look at, we have 3 groups. One is a group that's going to be on the van pool, about 60 people. One is a group that's just going to get education from UTRU and the Natural History Museum of Utah around climate change. And then one is a control group. And so this Natural History Museum of Utah Climate Change Education and the UTRU education is something that we're going to give to both the Vanpool and the education only group. But I was thinking we could expand that education as an outreach thing to the other Vanpools that are that are already existing at the UTA. And that could potentially be something that either the UTA could help fund or we could get some funding for. And that would give us some more, little bit more cash into UTRU as part of that outreach. And then also potentially, an understanding of what people's attitudes are around the UTA that actually ride things regularly, and potentially more members as we reach out, because that's 400 van pools. Probably each van pool has somewhere between 5 and 10 people on average. And so it's something on the order of 2,000 to 4,000 people that are using these vans. And so because that is a project that has ongoing support at the university, has ongoing support from UCare, has ongoing funding that will eventually make its way into UTRU's coffers once my IRB is submitted sometime in the next couple of weeks. That was one project I thought would make a nice thing that we could just build upon. It's always good, I think, to build upon existing projects. And so, just curious what people thought about that and whether it's, worth our time.
I think that's a great idea, to be perfectly honest. As far as if, well, obviously UTA kind of has that information. And so if we can start reaching out to the orgs that are using it, the businesses that are using the van pool, not only can we just, that's kind of a foot in the door, and then we can start also fundraising off of that as well as a general statement. So I think that's a great idea if UTA, since it sounds like you've already kind of started that particular line, if you kind of want to follow up with that and see if they are interested in kind of handing over contact information, I can start reaching out to those individual companies and saying, hey, this is who we are, this is what we're doing. Any interest in throwing a couple bucks our way? That I think that'd be great. That'd be fantastic.
Cool.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. Other people, other ideas out there.
Anybody? So one of the ones that, as I was doing a little bit of research, I reached out to some of our national contacts and kind of finding out what some of the things that they were doing is as far as that's concerned. And a very common one that I think would be very easy to implement and get behind was adopt a stop. And the idea is that if there is a stop or two that is particularly high use, we would work with UTA and just kind of like adopt a highway, right? We would work with UTA and say, hey, is it all right if we pretty up this particular bus stop or stops, right? And maybe once a week or once a month you go out there and maybe you plant a couple flowers, or if there's any graffiti, we clean it up a little bit, or if there's just garbage around, we kind of clean up along a stop route, excuse me. And you can kind of bang that out in an hour or two. It keeps members engaged. It also has a very tangible benefit for the people. If we're talking geography and geographic chapters, I mean, these are the people that are using their stops, right? And so, and then again, we're also increasing appeal and desirability to actually use stops. If there's just, maybe a flower pot or something out there that gets, native plants, so you don't have to worry about watering or anything like that. That was one of the big ones that seemed to be really popular as far as visibility, and then we could brand whatever depending on what we decide to do. This flower pot brought to you by UTRU or something like that. And so that was one of the very common ones. Another one was the idea of stop synthesis, where basically you would take a route, you would document each individual stop, and then you would make recommendations for, this this seems like a higher profile. Can we maybe get a little bench there? Or this is a really popular one. Can we convert that into a shelter? And then kind of related to that adopt a stop, fundraise around that a little bit. Hey, members of the community, we see a lot of you are at this particular stop. Wouldn't it be great if we had a shelter there? A shelter probably costs $3,000-4,000, so it's not terribly cheap, but it's also not terribly expensive if you can get a lot of kind of people behind that one particular idea. And so those were a couple of the ideas that were put out on the national front that I got back, as far as kind of quick, easy ways to keep members engaged, or start to get members engaged and keep them engaged. And then obviously there's all the stuff that we do generally, if we have events and tabling and that sort of stuff. If there's a local farmers market, see if we can get in for free, all of that good stuff. But those were the two big ones. John, you're muted.
What was the second one, Curtis? What was it called again?
So there's the Adopt a Stop, and then there's the Bus Stop Census.
Bus stop census. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was just looking. UTA. I remember bringing this up at the quarterly meeting, or at least somebody did. And I remember UTA actually has like kind of this bus stop program, I dug into this at some point. And so I think if we were to do, and I'll put it in the chat. Here you go for everybody. So there's actually already. There's a bus stop master plan, and there's also a Adopt a Stop program. And so it seems like that would be a nice area to continue partnering with the UTA, but also expand out. And then it's also, we're not starting from scratch. We would be asking the chapters to, jump right in, start talking to the UTA about this, and find out kind of what the status is in their community, and also potentially get access to people who've adopted stops, and are featuring bus stops. There's a featured effort too. It's like a feature bus stop thing as well. So yeah, cool.
And actually, I completely forgot about that. Like I said, this is the national thing, but I'm looking at this now, and that's if we're talking about also just building membership. If this is already built in, I'm sure UTA would be happy to tell us who is doing this right now, and then we can start kind of building membership through that route. So yeah, I do remember them bringing up the master plan now that you mentioned that, but I didn't realize that there was already an Adopt a Stop. So look at that UTA is already doing the work for us. But cool.
And some of these things I think UTA, I'm getting this impression of this agency, and Chris, tell me what kind of your thoughts are, is that they're very good at adopting some of these interesting community engagement things. They seem to have like the bones of a proper transit agency in place, but it seems like it's just underutilized, or people are just not as aware of these things. In some cases, because there's like I was like, oh, the bus stop thing, and they have the master plan, and there's like agencies out there that don't have anything like that, and like the Adopt a Stop and stuff. It's like there seems to be like there's the bones of like the right agency in place. It just needs to be kind of like worked out by the people to get better and stronger. In some sense, maybe that's overly optimistic, but kind of, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm not thoroughly optimistic, because these most of these types of programs have come about not primarily because there is somebody like our organization pushing for it, but that UTA has had such a bad community engagement over the years, and so that, and again, I mean, this is probably a pessimistic view, but I haven't seen anything that says it's inaccurate, but that they're basically implementing these programs. It's a front. In a lot of ways, it's a front, right? So you look at this and you say, hey, this is underutilized. Well, yeah, it is underutilized. But in all actuality, the agency does not. There's still a dual dynamic in the agency where you have a lot of people that are pushing for certain things, and those things just are not being adopted, or there's just not a really big, push for it, or there's not a program in place to, like, for instance, probably the best thing to look at is the driver operator shortage. Had UTA been really invested and really involved in that, the operator shortage would have been solved a long time ago. I mean, I've talked to a couple of different people that are involved in other agencies, and while some of them are still having, like, for instance, here in Portland, it's not a very big system, but they don't have any problems with drivers. And it's because it's a progressive state, progressive city, and I mean, they don't have 15-minute service. There's kind of a stretch of the street where it's 15 minutes through the main street, but the bottom line is that UTA has these programs, but they're primarily for show, and they're primarily because of the bad rap that the agency has received over however many years. And to kind of give you an idea is you look at the board, the chairman, Carlton Christensen. There's probably better transit advocates out there in the real world, and so that's kind of he is the connection between the old board and how we went with this new board. It's supposed to be sleeker, 3 people, and we're supposed to get a lot of things done. But in my mind, it's for show. I mean, I just don't. I mean, I would be really interested in this, to see how many actual people have actually adopted bus stops. And I think that will give you an idea of whether there's any commitment on UTA's part to ensure that these types of things are successful. And kind of to step back from this a little bit, or at least to kind of give you a better idea. So you've seen the new signs, the new signage that's out and about. Most of the system, they don't have it, and so it's like, when trying to find out, well, why didn't we just do it, right? Why didn't they just replace all of the signs all at once? That's a question that I would ask UTA directly and see what their answer is. I know what their answer is. They're going to say, well, we just wanted to make sure that it wasn't such a burden to the riders, like doing all of this all at once. But yet, in the same vein, they will turn off a route just like that, right? They'll do the 120 days that they do now, but they'll turn it off just like that, and there's no discussion. So that's where the kind of the two-face, I call it the two faces, two faces of UTA. So, and I mean, maybe that's more of the pessimist in me, rather than the optimist. Like, yeah, okay, we got this program, but I think that this is a very good way to find out how committed UTA is to this type of thing. In that, what happens if we go and adopt a bunch of bus stops and then start pushing for better service on those bus stops?
Yeah, and not to counter Chris, but the more optimistic side of it. Well, I don't know if it's optimist or just my point of view, but I get the impression, kind of building off of what Chris said, as far as, they had a lot of negative press and they, were just trying to get programs to show that they are engaged in the community. I think there was a panic, and so they said, oh, let's start doing all of these things. And then they hire a community engagement person, Megan. She's fantastic, but it also, I get the impression that she has a lot of work and not a lot of funds to do it with, right? And so, and to a degree, yeah, that is kind of that window dressing. But like, she's a true believer. Like, she really does want to make sure that these things get fixed. And so, my guess is that if we come to her and say, hey, we see that UTA already has this thing. First of all, A, like you said, is there anything that is, is there anybody we can talk to and see what they've done? But then B, would it be all right if we started doing this for you guys? She go, yes, please. We want to do this thing. Please, let's do it. Because I think she's got 1,000 different things that UTA kind of came to her in a panic and said, we need to clean up our image and blah blah blah. And so the not that I disagree with Chris's origin story, so to speak, but I believe that department definitely wants to be more engaged, but they have a lot of unfunded mandates and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And so they can only do so much. And so that results in a lot of half-assed things that UTA as a general organization may not be supporting as well as it should. But as far as that department and the people in it, I think that they do legitimately want to improve things for writers. So just two sides of the same coin. Chris, you're muted.
Devin and Zach, I thought I saw Zach typing, or Devin did. If you guys want to jump in.
I think you're right, Curtis. But I think the bigger thing is that the organization is still in that Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type thing,
Sure.
where it's like, okay, we don't have the money for it, but we're just gonna. And then when it comes down to it, they're just gonna say, well, we don't have the money to move things forward. Right. When in actuality, I mean, it's been the same argument. It's like, well, we're not proposing a fare increase right now. We're not proposing, that we get more money for more service right now. And it's like, right. Okay, well, so then you don't really want more service,
right?
That type of thing. So,
yeah. There's also before I forget, this is something, Curtis, if you can just look into this, the CARES Act, I think it was, or the COVID money, had been supplying something like $200 million. I was looking at the UTA budget documents. It looked like it was supplying something like a third of the budget, or like $200 million, some very big amount, and that's set to be gone in the next fiscal year. So I didn't read through the budget documents in detail to see what their plan was around that and what that was supporting, but we should look into that, just as an aside.
Sure. And
yeah, Chris, I think there's the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde transit mentality is something that the entire United States struggles with. If you look at stuff, even in leading transit agencies, like, I stretch to say that MBTA is a leading transit agency, but it is one of the most extensive systems in the country, and yet they have one of their main lines has been down for a good chunk of the year with deferred maintenance issues. And the big dig, which took place in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was supposed to fund the environmental offset, was to extend the Green Line out to Tufts University area, out to Medford. And that, I don't think it's like almost nearing completion 20 years later.
20 years later.
And that's on an existing rail line. Like, that's on the commuter. That's like not some crazy, they're going to have to buy all this land and displace all these people, even though transportation agencies in the United States, such as highways, seem happy to do that and able to do that very quickly. So yeah, it's something we struggle with here. So the question in my mind is, what are the leverage points by which we can engage members to get them excited so we build a movement, and then also that we prove to the agency but also to our political allies, our viability as a group, and our seriousness, and that we deserve a voice at the table. And so, where are those leverage points? So when I click on the Adopt a Stop program link, it goes to a dead link. So yeah,
Yeah. That's exactly the.
Yep.
So we should be a little strategic in which one of these programs we engage in. We don't want to, like, the Vanpool program seems like, from my impression going there, and this is part of like what we should do, I think, have the members do too, is as we filter out to the member chapters, and I'll bring this up to Scott, is let's dig into some of these things to figure out what are the viable programs, what are the programs that have staff, and what are the programs that are just like unfunded mandates. So like Vanpools, for instance, that had staff. It has multiple members on it. They've got 400 bands going. They've got Vanpools that go up to the resorts. They've got them, on the seasonal basis. They've got some electric ones that they're doing, some hybrid ones. They've got some new ones. That's like a viable program that's going on, right? Is Adopt a Stop as viable as the Vanpool program? I kind of doubt it, but we should try and find out.
But see, that's part of the problem, though, John, is that when you look at it, I mean, as a Vanpool is great, but I've not ever used a Vanpool in my 57 years of life. It's always been get on the bus, take the bus somewhere, and get off. And so the mentality with, and this is just Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and it's where the biggest, and like you said, it's in every transit system. But the reason why it's in every transit system is that transit systems are supposed to be for commuters, right? There you take your car to a bus station or a train station, and then you get on the bus, and then you take it into your city job, and then you climb 20 stories in your building, and then you work 8 hours, and then you go home that way.
And that's the mentality. Like the wrong mentality. Yeah.
And so that's why when you look at the Vanpool, you look at that, and there's a reason why it is more, why there's more to it, and that is that it's a car think. It's a car think a way to do buses. I mean, and not that there isn't anything bad with Vanpools, but it's just that the real, like, I want to take a bus from here to the zoo. All right, I want to go to the zoo. Well, I can't take a bus to the zoo because there's no bus to the zoo. They took that out, right? It takes you 20 minutes walking to get to a bus stop to get to the zoo. And so there's just, and again, I mean, I think that the real meat of the issue is going to be the transit imagined. I think that more people, and I don't know, Devin and Zach might be able to chime in on this and to see if how they feel about it. But to me, the established portions of the what's out there is probably going to be the lower hanging fruit. But to me, the idea is, I want 45 to have 15-minute service again. I want 39 to have 15-minute service. Right now there's only 3 routes that run south of 33rd South that have 15-minute service on it. Everything north of 33rd South and in Salt Lake City, because Utah County only has 2 15-minute routes. Weaver County only has 1 15-minute route. And so, you look at that, and to me, it just seems the best way to get people excited again is to say, we want, more service everywhere. What was it? Forget the tag I came up with, but
yeah, it was that. Yeah, everywhere.
There's more service everywhere all the time. Yeah,
everywhere all the time.
And so again, it's a sad commentary to where the programs for Vanpool are more fleshed out than say even the Mid Valley Connector, the BRT that they're trying to run from Murray to Salt Lake Community College, the BRT that they're developing. I mean, my estimation, I don't think that the amount of ridership that they're planning for that is even going to happen. And I don't want to be pessimistic, but it just seems to me that we need, the idea with the van pool is a great idea. And that's how we can get more people engaged. But when it comes down to the I can't take a van pool. There's no reason for me to take a van pool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think it's thinking strategically. There's this whole in one of the Better Buses, Better Cities, and concluding remarks in their book was about the transit advocacy sandwich, and that in order for a successful transit advocacy to take place, you need a strong organization that's doing the advocacy, the nonprofit, right? So we're building that here, and then you need internal allies within the agency that are people that are that you can work with and that are working with you and that are pushing for the right types of reforms. And I think we should think about who that is within the agency strategically, and whether that's on the board or whether that's in leadership or where that is. We have some allies, we have contacts, and then there's also the political piece, so that there's a political advocate at elected official level that's also pushing for things. And those three working together is what makes the sandwich edible and what makes it able to help move transit advocacy forward. So thinking strategically about how we do that is what we should,
and maybe
where are we at with that?
And maybe that's one of the problems that we have to probably really dive into. I mean, Joel Briscoe is great, but being a Democrat, he is completely without power.
Yeah.
And so, it's like, the people we really need to get on board are the people that just don't really care, like Mike Schultz, for instance, right? If those buses were full, it's like, all right, well, if those buses were full, we'd need more buses because that's the way transit works.
Right.
Your buses get full, you need more buses. So,
yeah.
So
what about the Salt Lake County level? What about the Salt Lake County level?
I'm sure we could
where have they been?
I mean, neutral to slightly a positive, I would say. They've supported bringing votes to the public in the past for tax increases that have largely been successful. The Salt Lake County Salt Lake County Council just went back to Democrat not terribly long ago. Not that that should matter, but let's be honest. So there's slight political leanings. It might be a place worth exploring as far as getting some political allies. But we would need to expand out to Davis Weber, and don't forget, I mean, we are also a statewide organization, right? Yes, I always like to say that UTA is the big kahuna, obviously, but we can't forget about Logan. We can't forget about St. George and Cedar City, and hell, even Springdale down in Moab, and what's going on with the High Valley Connect out west or out east with Vernal and Roosevelt and those areas, right? So yes, UTA is the big chunk of it, but it is going to have to be a statewide thing too at some point if we want to be realistic.
Well, and just because politically that's where those people are at.
Yeah. So unless there's more discussion, I think we've talked about this pretty good. We do have a couple of other items left. I do want to give Devin and Zach just an opportunity to speak before we move on. Devin, I see you went on mute.
Yeah, I kind of just want to echo what Chris said about bus service south of 33rd is absolutely terrible. So
it is.
I think that should really be a bigger emphasis than the van pools. I think van pools are kind of like an Uber type deal. So I think that is kind of a competing mode to like a bus in general. So maybe if we just had like better, more frequent buses, maybe we wouldn't need so many van pools. So I don't know. I think it's kind of they're trying to be kind of innovative, I guess, in their transit solutions, but sometimes that can take you away from what actually works, which are,
Buses
that are on the routes that are come often.
buses that are actually
Mhm.
going down the street every 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Devin, any
so-
thoughts about the bus stop improvement effort stuff or adopt a stop type of things?
Yeah, so I was at a city or maybe a community council meeting for Sugar House, and they had a community rep. He was saying it was mostly just to address some of the vandalism they've been seeing at the bus stops. I know some of the ones downtown have like broken glass all the time. When they had those glass shelters, I think they've started to take down most of them, but most of the newer ones. But I mean, it's a great idea. They haven't really advertised it at all on social media, so it's not like they're trying to, create more work for themselves. But it has promise, and I think that if you had like maybe people who actually live, because a lot of the bus stops are in front of somebody's house, maybe you could bring it up with them. UTA has this program, adopt a stop. But I mean, maybe the people who actually ride the buses that are in the area would care more about it. So
Okay. No, thank you for that. And that starts getting my idea of targeted, like reaching out to people of like, you have a stop in front of you. Wouldn't it be great if it was nice? Okay. I do want to move on in the last 15 minutes or so. So I did just want to bring up filling up board positions briefly. As I mentioned at the top, Bree has stepped down from her position. So that does leave, and obviously our board says we can have up to 9 individuals on the board, but I just want to kind of throw this out there. If there are any people that we can think of that might be interested in sitting on the board, just in some capacity, that would be great. I don't know if anybody has any particular ideas.
I'm all tapped out. 9 years is enough. I can't
Sure,
take that.
I get that.
All my friends say no.
That's fair.
No, and stop asking.
I have since the SALT article was published, a few people got back to me about
Awesome.
I just texted me to talk about it. And so I'm going to try and reach through that network. What I want to try and bring in are people with who could be donors or connections to donors. So, so that we can get some organizational funding in through the board. So that's what I'm thinking about. But most of my state contacts or people that I know are like through the university and through Salt Lake. And so, I wouldn't want to stack the board with people from the U.
Sure.
Well, one thing too, and but again, we can look at this 2 ways. Those people might be better for the advisory council because technically we do have an advisory council that we can appoint that would kind of direct what the actual or suggest what the group should be working on. So keep that in mind. There's the working group where we would be, and then there can be an advisory group that could be as big as you want it, as big as you need it. So I would definitely keep that kind of as a hook. If there's somebody who says, well, yeah, I can find people who will donate money, but I don't want to
be on the board. Yeah.
I don't want to actually do any of the work. Why would I work?
I'll give you money.
I'll give you money.
I'll take the money.
Yeah,
we'll take the money.
That's fine.
We'll
take money. Sure. So actually, yeah, that's a good idea. And John, I meant to mention this. Can you actually send over that link? I'd love to publish that on our website.
Yeah, I don't think they have a it's like a community news magazine, and so
Right.
I haven't been able to find. I'll check the magazine and see if there's a link. Yeah.
That'd be great. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I just mostly wanted to start us thinking about that one a little bit more. So, and even if we do start filling people in on this advisory board, and then they start saying, "Hey, I want to do a little bit more," then we can always bring them on board the board. All right, fundraising planning. First of all, I want to say thanks to Zach for his recent donation. Thank you very much for that one, Zach. Much appreciated as always. But as far as the fundraising planning a little bit more, so did want to discuss kind of potential specific donors and contact strategies. And what I meant by that when I added that to the agenda is I kind of hit on that a little bit during my update, but I am starting to actually compile lists with amounts of money and addresses and that sort of stuff. I've pretty much made it to the organizations that have contributed in the past, but and now I'm just like cleaning up addresses and that sort of stuff, and I'm going to do the similar thing for individuals. But once that's done, I think it would behoove us to, even between meetings, to start thinking about, okay, what are some of the specific individuals or groups that we want to start reaching out to? Who is going to be reaching out? What will be the mode of contact? Like with these orgs, we can definitely do, mail and phone calls and that sort of stuff. If there are high dollar individuals, if we can work contacts that we may already have. But I brought this up mostly as I've been working on putting this list together, and the question is, okay, well, now what, right? And so those are some of my ideas as far as how we want to approach this. And I mostly just wanted to get the discussion started, that now that we have this information, what do we want to do with it? So I don't know if anybody has any thoughts, ideas, suggestions, things that they also want me to include, other sources of funding that you might want me to look into. And then what happens next? What happens once we have all of this information? What do we want to do? So I just wanted to open that up and see what y'all had to say about that, if anything.
Do we have any kind of canned outreach emails or story that we can start with?
Not really, but I'm sure we could put something together. That's not hard. But and maybe Chris can say what's happened in the past, but certainly since I've come on, we haven't had like any sort of big dollar donor push per se without necessarily being attached to something, right? Like, yes, we've asked for money for the van pool or the education training, and we will be asking with Transit Imagine, but I hesitate to wait until Transit Imagine is completed or even has the bare bones, because that's still going to be a little while, right?
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, right? And so I don't want us to just be like, oh, well, we're waiting for this thing before we start asking for funds. I just want, and that's to a lesser degree, that's the idea behind the stickers, right? Is just give us money because we're doing stuff and we want to show you what we're doing. And as a thank you, here's a couple stickers that you can throw on, like quick, easy. It's $5 a month. But donating to UTRU for the sake of UTRU being UTRU, and not necessarily tied to any particular activity that we are doing, because the particular activities, that's where I'm seeking grants. That's where we're going to community centers and that sort of stuff. That's where we're talking to lawmakers and interested parties for some of that. But we just need the donating to UTRU for UTRU's sake. And I think we've got some stuff under our belt at this point where we can get some people to come in. So I just wanted to start that discussion. I don't know if anybody has anything that they want to add to that, or if it's just, my intention was mostly let's start chewing on this. Let's start thinking about what is the next step once we have all of these names and places that we can reach out to.
Yeah, I think that the dividing and conquer, sending some assignments to each of us, and then just some of these things are just, you got to start doing it. You got to start reaching out to people and see what's successful, and start with like the advice I get is start with who you think would be the most challenging, so that you can practice on those with the lowest chance of success, and then refine it as you get better and closer to the ones that you think would be more likely.
Not the worst strategy, that's for sure.
But I'm excited to start reaching out to people. I want to get funds in here, and so I'm happy to get to start getting on the phone and start emailing people and seeing what happens.
Sure.
I stepped away. I have no idea what you were talking about.
That's what
so.
you get. Just kind of
Great.
next steps as far as fundraising are concerned. Like I said, I've been putting lists together as far as potential donors based off of, you know, past political donors and that sort of stuff. But the question was, what happens next? And so mostly bringing it up just as an idea of
We
let's
ask
start
them for
kicking this
money.
around.
That's what happens. We start asking them for money.
Well, that's the thing, but
And say we need Curtis to be able to live and work, and he is hungry and cold
so cold.
and without without electricity and
It's
you know
I'm powering my computer with like a hand crank right now.
save Curtis. This is how you do it. You donate
There you
to Utah Transit Riders Union, and then we can afford to pay Curtis and keep his lights on and keep
All that good
himself
stuff.
fed and shelter over his house. And
Yeah. So yeah, just start kicking that around, and it kind of somewhat related to that with the weekly updates I'm starting to send out with you guys. First of all, I hope that those have been useful as far as that's concerned. But also, now that we're starting to have these things, we can continue to have these discussions in between board meetings, and certainly that's already happened in a number of cases. So that's fantastic. We have 3 minutes left for our open forum. Does anybody have anything particular they want to discuss? Again, keeping in mind we have that kind of in between discussions as well.
yeah, nothing we can talk in 3 minutes. I mean, again, my big thing is that we have to we have to figure out how to be an advocacy organization that is ready to flip over a bus and set it on fire, but at the same time, you know, working within UTA and the groups, and again, I mean, yeah, Logan and in Cedar City are all transit hubs, and there's buses down there, but for the most part, the people that are wanting to be involved are going to be inside Salt Lake City, somewhat outside of Salt Lake City, and we just have to figure out how to bust it wide open so that you know, we're getting the Davis County and the Ogden and the people in Provo that are like who want the bus, and that they do want to flip over a bus and set it on fire because that's how angry they are with the level of service they're getting. So and just real quick, so one of the items that I thought, and I'll talk to Mike, but I'm seriously thinking of starting a chapter of UTRU that is solely for the carless individual.
You make that sound so negative, like the carless individual.
The carless individual.
Car-free lifestyle.
Car-free lifestyle. I mean, however, and I'll talk to Mike, and this is where,
sure,
because Mike's without a car, I'm without a car, and you know, up here in Portland, you're basically, I mean, you could literally walk everywhere, but because there's a bus right out there on the main street every 15 minutes, you know, and I was just pleasantly surprised at the number of people that are actually using transit up here, but you can't go carless with a crappy system.
No.
And so I'm thinking that, and I'll talk to Mike about this, see what he thinks, and maybe we could at least be the car-free individuals. But in my mind, that's being car-free is what's going to make a difference in the future, and we really have to turn that. Mike Schultz sentiment that, well, you know, we don't need full buses. We just need a good transit system, and then the full buses take care of themselves.
Well, that's always the fun one too, is we don't have full cars, right? So
yeah, those cars aren't full, Mikey.
Yeah, so I could go on for that one, but okay. Well, I think we do definitely have some action items that we can work forward with. I will work on getting these minutes out, and then again, I really do. I like the idea of the weekly kind of check-ins with everybody. I think that's helpful, and
yeah, that's been great, Curtis.
So I'll keep doing that, and let's just keep going and fighting and winning and getting some more momentum. I like the idea of the car free. I think we can get a lot of people behind that and get more people in. So unless there's anything super duper pressing, and Devin, if you'd like, I can include you on those weekly updates as well. But
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. I will start doing that as well. And then, yeah, unless there's anything super duper pressing, just keep an eye out on your inboxes. Continue communicating through there, and I will continue to chip away at all the things. Like I said, I've been at the top. Now that I'm donating my time back in, and I know it's not perfect, but I feel a little more free to devote more hours to this. So I will keep doing that on that front. But let's go ahead and call it a meeting unless there's anything else. Then I just need
Really
one
quick,
final
Chris,
motion.
did you ever think about maybe starting a Discord challenge or channel?
I'm not. I suppose we could. That's not a terrible idea. It's just another way to get out into the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can look into that and see if we can't get a Discord going. That's not a bad idea.
All right.
See, that's why I love ideas.
It's a good idea, but I hate Discord just because I'm an old man, crusty old man.
We gotta reach the kids though. We gotta get to we gotta get to the kids.
And Twitter is slowly collapsing. So
yeah, I know. Like that's the thing is I see the imminent demise of Twitter, and so I don't want to keep relying on that. If we can start moving people over, so
Discord,
Yeah, I'm
Discord's
listening to a
probably
few
a good
different
idea.
like podcasts, and I know
Mhm.
Sweet Streets. They have a Discord in Salt Lake
Yeah.
City. So
You have to get it set up perfect though, Curtis. The gamers that I've used, we had some guy who was on drugs or something, I don't know, but he just didn't get it set up correctly, and it's a pain in the ass to operate. So so you do need to find somebody that is skilled at getting it set up.
yeah, I
or
will
it
fully
crashes
admit
and
I'm
burns.
not.
Yeah, or it crashes and burns. So
I'm not super familiar with Discord. Devin, is that something you might be interested in looking into for us?
yeah, I can look into that.
That'd be
awesome.
great. I'm not, like I said, I'm not. I know what Discord is, but I don't really use it all that often. So, yeah, just work with me
I'm
as
not
far as
opposed to it.
information. Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
Cool. Well, then I'll work with you on that one. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and call it a meeting. There is one final motion to adjourn, non-debatable. All those say aye or just raise your hand or whatever to adjourn. Awesome.
No.
All right. Well, unless Zach says otherwise. All right. I'm going to go ahead and call it. Keep an eye on your inboxes, and we'll at least talk to you in a month or so.
All right. Thanks,
All right, cool.
Curtis.
See ya.
Great. Thank you.